Hello everyone, welcome back to Elite Tales. Here we discover the emotional and captivating stories about Elon Musk. In this video, we will capture the heartwarming moments of famous entrepreneur. Before we begin, I request you that please subscribe our channel for more interesting videos. It was a chilly afternoon, the kind where the wind whispers through the bare trees and the scent of winter hangs heavy in the air. The snow, which had been falling gently all morning, was now accumulating on the ground, blanketing everything in a soft, white layer. The world outside looked peaceful, but inside the small house at the corner of the block, there was nothing but sadness. A little girl named Emily sat on the floor of her living room, clutching a worn-out teddy bear. Her tear-streaked face buried in her knees, she rocked back and forth, trying to calm herself, but nothing seemed to ease the ache in her heart. She had lost her best friend. Her puppy Max was gone. Max wasn't just any puppy. He was a gift from her dad, who had passed away a year ago. She still remembered that special day when her dad had brought Max home, wrapped in a big red bow, with a smile that stretched from ear to ear. "He's yours now," her dad had said. "He'll keep you company when I'm not around." Emily had never felt such joy. Max became her companion, her confidant, her little source of comfort in the quiet moments of her life. But now, Max was missing. She had let him out to play in the yard, but when she went to check on him, he was gone. She searched the yard, the street, the nearby park. Nothing. The emptiness in her chest only deepened with every passing hour. She knew her dad would have found a way to bring him back. She could almost feel him beside her, telling her to keep looking, to keep hope alive. But her heart felt heavy, like a stone she couldn't lift. It was during one of her quiet sobs that a voice broke through her grief. "Is everything okay, sweetheart?" She wiped her eyes and looked up. Standing in the doorway was none other than Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur who had moved into a house nearby. He was always kind to the neighborhood kids, but Emily hadn't expected to see him today, especially not in the middle of her sadness. I lost my puppy," Emily said between sniffles. "His name is Max. He was a gift from my dad, but now he's gone, and I don't know what to do." Elon's heart tightened. He could see the pain in the little girl's eyes, the way she clutched her teddy bear like it was the only thing left that brought her comfort. He didn't hesitate. "Don't worry, Emily. We'll find Max," Elon said, his voice gentle but firm. "I promise." Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. "You can help me?" Elon smiled softly. "I have an idea. Let's start looking together." Outside, the cold winter air greeted them as they stepped onto the snowy path. Elon knelt down and spoke gently to Emily. "Max couldn't have gone too far. We just have to be smart about this." With a sense of purpose, they walked through the neighborhood, asking anyone they met if they had seen a little puppy. Elon, usually known for his high-tech ventures and ventures into space, was now focused on something more important than any invention: a little girl's happiness. They combed the streets, walked through the nearby park, and even knocked on doors. But still, there was no sign of Max. Emily's hope began to wane. The cold nipped at her cheeks, and the snow seemed to fall heavier, as though the world itself was mourning the loss of her puppy. As the afternoon turned to evening, Emily's tears started again. I don't think we'll ever find him," she said softly, her voice filled with sorrow. Elon paused. He knew that feeling all too well, the feeling of hopelessness that threatened to swallow you whole. But he couldn't let that happen. Not today, not when a little girl's heart was broken. "Don't give up, Emily. We're not done yet. I'm not going to let you down." And so they kept searching, through the snow, through the streets, past the park, and into the woods behind the neighborhood. It was getting darker, the shadows growing longer, But Elon's determination never wavered. And then, just as they were about to head back home, they heard a soft whimper. Emily froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Elon nodded, his eyes scanning the area. "Stay close." They followed the sound, moving quietly through the trees until they spotted a small figure lying near a fallen log. Emily gasped. "Max!" The little puppy was curled up in the snow, shivering from the cold. His fur was matted, and he looked up at them with wide, scared eyes. But when he saw Emily, his tail began to wag weakly. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she dropped to her knees beside him. "Max, oh Max, I was so worried. Where were you?" Max licked her face, his small body trembling but overjoyed to be back in her arms. Elon, standing a few steps away, watched the heartwarming scene unfold. The joy on Emily's face was enough to melt even the coldest of hearts. "You found him, Mr. Musk," Emily said, her voice full of wonder. "You really did it." Elon smiled softly, his eyes filled with warmth. "No, Emily, you found him. You never gave up. That's what matters." As they made their way back to Emily's house, with Max safely in her arms, the world seemed just a little bit brighter. The snow that had once felt so cold and unforgiving now felt soft and gentle, as if the universe itself was sharing in their joy. The moon was rising now, casting a soft, silvery light over the snow-covered ground. The street lamps glowed faintly, like tiny beacons of hope in the distance. Emily, still cradling Max in her arms, walked beside Elon, her small hand tightly gripping his sleeve. She didn't want to let go of Max, not for a second. She had been so afraid that she would never see him again. But now, with the warmth of the puppy in her arms, she felt as though a weight had been lifted from her chest. Max was shaking still, but his tail wagged with a little more strength each time it brushed against Emily's side. Her heart felt as if it were soaring. She looked up at Elon, her eyes wide with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for helping me find him. I don't know what I would have done without you." Elon smiled softly, his expression more genuine and kind than Emily had ever seen. "You don't have to thank me, Emily. It was your determination that got us here. You never gave up. And that's what really matters." They reached the house, and Emily's mother, who had been anxiously waiting by the window, rushed to the door when she saw them approaching. "Emily!" she cried out, her voice full of relief. "And Max! You found him! Oh, thank goodness!" Emily's mother bent down to kneel in front of her daughter, her eyes filled with unshed tears. She reached out, stroking Max's fur gently, as if she couldn't quite believe he was back home. "I was so worried, I didn't know what to do," she murmured. "I told you, Mom," Emily said softly, her voice strong despite the exhaustion in her small frame. "I knew we would find him. I just had to keep looking." Elon watched the mother and daughter embrace, his heart swelling with emotion. There was something about their bond, about the way they shared this moment, that made him realize just how powerful love and determination could be. The feeling of being part of something so pure, so real, was something that money or fame could never buy. "You did something amazing today, Emily," Elon said quietly, his voice full of admiration. "Not just by finding Max, but by showing everyone what it means to keep hope alive. You remind me that sometimes the smallest gestures can make the biggest difference." Emily looked up at him with a shy smile, still holding Max close to her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice filled with a sincerity that touched Elon's heart deeply. "Remember, Emily," Elon replied, his eyes meeting hers with understanding, "sometimes the most important thing is to never stop believing. You showed me that tonight." As they all stepped inside the warm house, the door creaking shut behind them, Emily's mother quickly got to work making hot cocoa to celebrate Max's return. The small home was filled with the comforting smell of chocolate and cinnamon, and for the first time that day, the weight of worry and fear seemed to lift. Emily and her mom sat at the small kitchen table, Max curled up at their feet as they drank their cocoa. The warmth from the drink and the presence of their beloved puppy made everything seem right again. The cold winter night outside was forgotten as the sound of laughter and the clinking of mugs filled the air. As they sat around the kitchen table, the warmth from the steaming cups of cocoa seemed to spread through their bodies, melting away the lingering coldness of the night. The little house, though modest, was filled with a sense of peace that had been sorely absent just hours before. Emily held Max close, gently stroking his soft fur, and smiled down at him as he nuzzled her hand in contentment. Her eyes sparkled with happiness, and for the first time all day, she felt truly at ease. Her mother, with a gentle smile on her face, watched the two of them. Her heart swelled with gratitude, not just for the return of their beloved puppy, but for the kindness that had been shown to them. The overwhelming worry and fear that had consumed her all evening had finally dissipated, replaced with a deep sense of comfort. She couldn't believe how far they had come in such a short time. "Thank you, Mom," Emily said softly, looking up from Max and meeting her mother's eyes. "For everything." Her mother reached out, tucking a stray lock of hair behind Emily's ear. "You don't have to thank me, sweetie. You brought him back. You never gave up." Emily's eyes shimmered with emotion, the weight of everything that had happened slowly sinking in. "But I couldn't have done it without Mr. Musk," she whispered. Her mother smiled warmly, nodding. "No, honey, you're right. Mr. Musk was there when we needed him most." The thought of Elon Musk still lingered in the air like a quiet echo. It wasn't just that he had found Max. It was the way he had shown such genuine care and kindness. He hadn't just been a stranger helping them. He had been someone who truly saw them, who saw the heart of their struggle and took action without hesitation. Emily had always known that people could be kind, but what Elon had done went beyond anything she had ever imagined. As they continued sipping their cocoa, Max nestled up to Emily's feet, letting out a contented sigh. The warmth in the house was a stark contrast to the icy world outside, and in that moment, nothing else seemed to matter. They were safe, and they were together. Meanwhile, Elon sat alone in his car, parked just outside the small house. He couldn't help but replay the evening in his mind. The way Emily had been so determined to find her puppy, the way she had held on to hope even when everything seemed hopeless. Those were qualities he admired more than he could express. He had done what he could to help, but it was Emily's strength and resolve that had truly made the difference. He thought about how often people in his life were quick to focus on the big, grand gestures. Success, wealth, innovation, those were the things that people celebrated. But this, what had just happened, felt so much more important. Helping a little girl find her lost puppy, watching her face light up with joy, had felt more rewarding than any business deal or technological breakthrough ever could. Elon shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. There was something about the raw humanity of the moment that had affected him in ways he didn't quite understand. It was as if he had stumbled upon a lesson in the simplicity of kindness. Perhaps in all his pursuit of success, he had lost sight of what truly mattered. It wasn't about money, power, or influence. It was about the connections we make with others, the ways we can show up for one another when it really counts. He sat there for a few more minutes, staring out at the house where Emily and her mother were now tucked away inside, safe and sound. He could hear the faint sound of laughter filtering through the walls, and it warmed his heart in a way that was hard to describe. As he sat in silence, he couldn't help but feel thankful for the opportunity to have been part of something so beautiful. His actions, small as they may have seemed, had helped bring comfort to a family in need. And that, he realized, was what would stay with him long after the night was over. With a deep breath, Elon finally started the car and began to drive away. His heart was full, but there was a quiet sense of peace settling in. Sometimes the smallest things had the power to change everything, and he had just witnessed that firsthand. Inside the house, Emily's mother stood up, her arms outstretched. "How about we all sit down and have a little dinner?" she asked. "It's been a long day, and I think we could all use some comfort food." Emily's eyes brightened. "What are we having?" "I thought we'd have something simple. Spaghetti and garlic bread, just like we used to have on Christmas Eve when we had nothing else." Emily's smile widened. She loved spaghetti night. It reminded her of the times when things were simpler, when they didn't need anything extra to feel happy. She looked down at Max, who was now wagging his tail gently, his eyes full of contentment. It was the first time in weeks that she had felt truly at peace, and she was grateful for it. Her mother moved quickly around the small kitchen, boiling water for the pasta, while Emily helped her set the table. The kitchen was small, but it felt like a palace now. The warmth from the stove filled the air, and the smell of garlic and pasta began to take over, making everything feel even cozier. Emily looked around the room, her heart swelling. She had always loved this little house, despite its imperfections. It had been the place where she had grown up, where she had learned so much about love and family. And tonight, it felt even more special than ever. As they sat down to eat, Max beside them, the conversation flowed easily. It was simple, but it was everything they needed. They spoke about what they were thankful for, about the little moments that had brought them happiness throughout the year. And though there was still much to be done, they both knew that they had everything they needed in that moment. In the quiet, cozy glow of their little home, Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if the worries of the world had been lifted, leaving only the warmth of family and the comfort of knowing they were safe. Meanwhile, across town, Elon arrived at his own home. His mansion was empty, and the silence inside seemed to echo through the vast, luxurious hallways. It was hard for him to put into words, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Even with all his success and wealth, he felt a longing, a desire for something deeper than what his fortune had provided. He walked to his living room, his eyes landing on a small family photo on the mantel. It was a picture of his own children, smiling at the camera, and for a moment he felt an intense wave of love for them. It was the same love he had seen in Emily's eyes when she had been reunited with Max. He realized that this was what mattered most, being present, being kind, and showing up when it really counted. He didn't need to change the world with inventions or innovations. Sometimes, the most important thing was simply to make a difference in someone's life in the here and now. As he stood there, lost in thought, he made a quiet vow to himself. The next time he saw someone in need, he would remember the lesson he had learned that night. It wasn't about fixing the world or solving big problems. It was about the little moments, the ones that seemed insignificant at first but ended up changing everything. And maybe, just maybe, he would find the kind of peace that came from helping others, from showing compassion, from being a part of something bigger than himself. The night went on, and though their paths had diverged, both Emily and Elon carried the warmth of that moment with them. For Emily, it was the return of Max, the reunion with her beloved puppy, and the realization that no matter what life threw at her, she could handle it with hope and perseverance. And for Elon, it was the understanding that the real treasures in life were the bonds we formed, the kindness we shared, and the love that connected us all. As the night drew to a close, both Emily and Elon Musk had found something far more valuable than material wealth: hope, kindness, and the simple joy of human connection. Sometimes, it's the smallest acts of love that leave the biggest impact. And that night, A little girl and a billionaire both learned that the world could be a much brighter place when we lift each other up. So, remember, no matter how big or small, every act of kindness counts. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales that remind us of the power of love, compassion, and the bonds that unite us all. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video, where every heartwarming story has the power to change the world.